Back in time to another celebrity story. This week, Quentin Tarantino. My ex-wife and I meeting Quentin Tarantino, who we absolutely love. Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, can recite him from one end to the other. Deborah Jo and I met him up at the Playboy Mansion. We were leaving a party. I think it was a Halloween party because we were dressed as Papa and Razzi. He was talking to Hef. We come strolling out, and there he is. He recognizes Deborah Jo. He can't quite find her name. He's thinking, Deborah Jo. And then he describes her cover. I don't know. We just hit it off right away. And we start telling him what our favorite movie was, because both of us, it was True Romance. And he goes, my first script. You know, not everybody knows. He didn't direct it, so it's not on their list of Quentin Tarantino movies. Well, it's our favorite movie. And we told him that. We're describing it. I'm doing, I don't know. I'm Lee. Call me Lee. It's from the movie. Anyway, I reach into my pocket and I say, we based our wedding on True Romance. And he loved that. He found that amazing. I always had photos of my wedding. Somehow I tricked Deborah Jo just like I thought I would. Anyway, she's going on about Jackie Brown because in our universe, that's all that matters. Me and Deborah Jo, our whole thing was movies. So we go home that night and all we could think is, that was amazing. We met Quentin Tarantino. A couple days go by and of course, you know, we're talking about the regular stuff. How they find dinosaurs in Mayan art, you know. How they find guys riding triceratops in Mayan art, and we're supposed to not notice this. How they find coexisting humans with dinosaurs. How they found this. Look at this detailed photograph that they found in a Mayan cave. Just kidding. Speaking of dinosaurs, we get a call from Hef's office, and he has a house guest. There was a Playboy Playmate of the Year named Dorothy Stratton. She had a really tragic story. She was murdered by her boyfriend, this guy Paul Snider, and they ended up making the movie Star 80 about it. Mariel Hemingway, directed by Bob Fosse. Anyway, she had a little sister. Her little sister's name was Louise. Louise wanted to know as many Dorothy Stratton stories as she could. She was new in town. She didn't really know anybody. Her sister had dated the filmmaker Peter Bogdanovich. It was why Paul murdered Dorothy, because she was seeing this uber hot guy, Peter Bogdanovich. Anyway, years later, he's dating Dorothy's little sister, Louise. Because, you know, that's normal. And he's so hot, right? Anyway, Louise Stratton is a house guest of Quentin Tarantino. And they invite us over to tell stories and watch the E! Channel. The E! Channel was going to run a True Hollywood story about Dorothy Stratton. And we wanted to get a feel for what it might be like and talk her through it. So we watched the E! True Hollywood story about Elvis. Just the four of us, so we can get a hint of how they might treat the delicate topic of Dorothy's murder. Deborah and I get there. It's not far from where we live in Hollywood. It's actually up on Overland. And the first thing we see is a Jackie Brown bus bench outside of this building that turns out to be his screening room. It's a real theater. He has a candy counter. He has, 40 or 50 seats with cup holders. The real deal. And, you know, right past all that is the actual projection booth. I mean, it's his living room. We're watching television, but it also has a real projection booth with a real projectionist, you know? And we see a film canister marked True Romance. And I touch back my fingers and I just rub it across and he goes, do you want to come over? We could screen that for you. And we're like, yeah, that might be okay. So we go back and we're sitting in his living room and there's a statue. Living room. It's a theater, but it's a living room. We're watching television, and there's a statue of Jules from Pulp Fiction and of Robert De Niro's character from Jackie Brown. We watched the True Hollywood story about Elvis, and as Quentin put it, it's not that salacious. I remember he used that exact word. And he and I, we could have talked about Elvis for the rest of our lives. All we cared about was talking about Elvis, and it, you know, kind of to the exclusion of the rest of the room. But they loved it. I mean, he is the king of kings. Anyway, Dorothy's little sister. We told some stories about Dorothy. We watched Freaks and Geeks. Our next visit, we watched the show Freaks and Geeks by his friend Judd Apatow. Show's about high school kids exactly my age and his age. We were born in the same year. And as I'm leaving, he's asking me about the show. And I said, well, I identify with this one. Why? Who do you identify with? And he goes, what? I said, well, when I watch a show, I try and find who I am in the movie. I know who I am in this show. And he goes, well, who are you? And I said, well, I'm that kid. I'm the one who eventually gets the cheerleader. I mean, it took me 30 years, and I pointed to Deborah Jo. He goes, that's what you do when you watch shows? You find out who you are? And I go, don't you? He loved that. He thought that was the coolest thing. Anyway, we get a call from Louise about a week later. She invites us over to see Pulp Fiction with members of the cast and crew, we don't know who, and he was going to tell us about the movie. In other words, a live director's commentary for one of the best movies of all time. Certainly one of the most influential. He wants us to come to his house with members of the crew. We still don't know who that is because Deborah Jo said no. I remember it like yesterday. I was pretty upset. Louise was incredulous. She couldn't believe that we were going to turn it down. I couldn't believe we were going to turn it down, and to this day, it's one of my hugest regrets. One thing about Deborah Jo, you don't strike down with great vengeance and furious anger. That doesn't work. You got to pull the sad puppy. I gave it my best sad puppy. I guess she saw some stuff up there she didn't really like, and that's why we did not go back. And it is probably why we were never invited back again. But this is pretty cool. Years later, I realized that I had been in a film with Quentin Tarantino. Now, do you see that guy right there? That's Dwayne Whitaker, or as he's known in that film, Maynard. That's him about to be sliced in two. There's your humble host. Right around the time that I was invited to be in a film called Eddie Presley. It was 1992, and there was this guy in the movie. We hit it off. His name was, I don't know, Quentin. I didn't remember any of this until, way after we hung out. He's in this movie. Bruce Campbell is in this movie. Roscoe Lee Brown, and it's written by Dwayne Whitaker, Maynard from Pulp Fiction. Kugelager is in this movie. He and I hit it off really well. I remember that because we talked about Return of the Living Dead. I'm in the International Movie Database as being in a movie with Quentin Tarantino. That's pretty cool. You can't get upset about a thing like that. This is even cooler. Years later, when they released the 10th anniversary edition of True Romance with the writer's commentary, Quentin Tarantino mentions Deborah Jo and I. I know! How cool is that?